Good afternoon, Terry Hutchinson. Very nice to see you and talk to you again. We have done that a few times before, but now we are approaching America's Cup time, so it's more interesting for our readers, I think, to find out what is really going on.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah.
3 more days.
Yeah. We have seen some footage of your boat racing, not directly against the Italian boat, but you have been sort of crossing tacks and sailing parallel to each other. What is your experience?
Um, well, we haven't, the protocol restricts us from any coordinated racing or lining up. And so, as you rightfully pointed out, we've crossed tacks with them a couple of times. And, I think when I look at the Italian boat, you can see a very refined piece of equipment and technology. They're very good. At flying the boat, and their sails look very nice as well. You can just see the experience and the continuity from AC-36 in the system on their boat, and the carry on from sail design. Our boat is our boat has very similar features in some ways, and obviously she's a bit smaller, but it's you didn't leave any. You didn't leave scratching your head thinking to yourself, "Oh, geez, we got a bit of work to do here." But in the same breath, you didn't think that if you lost the start that you were going to be fast enough to sail around them to win the race. And so, it was probably two pretty even boats trundling along on opposite tacks and coming back together.
So the start, you think, is going to be even more critical than before?
Yeah, I think for all the teams, that I think all the boats in the fleet are all coming to a spot where, the appendage areas and the hulls and the sails, everything's gravitating towards somewhat of the same spot. I mean, there's some different concepts in how teams are handling leeway with their cant angles and such. But yeah, I mean, I think even more so than the previous America's Cup, this one's going to get more refined, and hence the execution on the starting line and winning the first cross and getting control of the race early will be even more so critical than in the past.
You have a pretty good team of helmsmen, Tom Slingsby and Paul Goodison. Slingsby, of course,
Yes.
being the dominant helmsman on the Sail GP tour, and of course with
Yes.
Olympic experience in dinghies.
Yes. Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah. So who's going who's going to steer the Italian boat? Is it Spittel and Bruno, or are they two young guys?
Yeah, that's a question for them. To be honest with you, I'm more focused on us and making sure we get the dynamic of our helmsmen and how the entire team communicates on the boat. I mean, the boats are quite challenging because you have from a hydraulic perspective, the rule hasn't changed, and yet you remove 3 people off the boat, and so the natural trend and logic was to go to cyclers and legs, but they still have to create a lot of power to move all the systems on the boat, and then the helmsmen and the trimmers, they're swapping off between sails and flying the boat and all sorts of things, and so they've got a lot going on themselves, and then on top of that, they have to, the 2 helmsmen in particular, have to get the boat off the start line cleanly and in a controlling position, and they have to sail the thing fast, and so there's a lot for them to do. The boat over my shoulder there, the AC-40, we had a great 3-month race period here inside of our team, and we were fortunate to have 4 good helmsmen with Tom and Paul and Lucas and Harry in the boats, and so the guys pushed really hard, and in the early days, they were quite successful against Tom and Goody, which was good to see. And in the same breath as the team got more and more refined and got better and better, and the communications got better and better, their performance became more dominant. So it's going to be exciting to see, because I think all the teams are they have a high level of skill. And I mean, you look at the Regatta and Jeddah, and the Italian team sailed very well there. And so, as I said, I don't really know what their decisions are going to be, but in our world, we're in a good spot that we have three very good helmsmen to cover that spot.
Is Harry Melges, is he one of the candidates for helmsman?
No, he's sailing the youth boat. But Lucas Calabresi, who's a 470 Olympic bronze medalist, is our third helmsman.
Right. Well, of course, Harry is interesting because his grandfather won the America's Cup a few years back.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. No, it's the legacy there. I mean, he's such a good young man. He's a great sailor. And it's been awesome to see his evolution really in a year's time, and how he's come along, not only on the water, but in the shed, and learning the ins and outs of, one of these programs, because that will carry on to all the other sailing that he does, be it in his old Melges 24 or in the next America's Cup. He is developing at a great pace, and he's a great young sailor. Sure.
These new boats are supposed to be 800 kilo lighter than the previous ones. Part of it is body weight, I assume, but there's also something in the hulls as well.
Yeah, they're 1,000 kilos lighter, and it's a combination of crew weight and systems inside the boat, and some of the restrictions that we have there. So, I think what you see is, upwind to a certain point of breeze, the boats are going to be a bit faster, and they'll be a bit faster downwind. But it's really the 12 to 14 or 12 to 15 knot range of wind speed where they're quite slippery relative to the AC 36 fleet. Less stability makes the boat probably not as fast upwind, but the foil arm's a little bit longer. And so, in some ways, even though the boat's lighter, the stability hasn't really changed because the arm's longer. So, it's exciting to see, and watching the execution of our team and in the construction and the delivery of Patriot, and then from when she landed here in March to her christening and launch on May 7th, it was an all team effort, and there was not a lot of downtime for the shore team, but fortunately things went as planned, and we put the boat in the water after about an hour of towing around and checking all the systems and hoisting the sails, and off they went, and up she went, and sat comfortably in the mid 30s and about 12 knots of breeze. So it was pretty cool to see, and what a great day. But it's all part of the program, and as a team, we're pretty singularly focused on the mission, and that's to win America's Cup 37 as it is for all the teams. And so I know sitting here today on May 31st, we got a lot of work to do in front of us.
You mentioned the wind speed of 10 to 12 or 14 knots would be a significant difference. But also in very light air, you've sailed and been able to foil in less than 6 knots. Which is quite good and very handy.
Considering our previous experience where the thing didn't take off anything much under about 8.5, it was great to see on a day where we were, half a knot, 3/4 of a knot under the wind limit, and we were able to take off and go for a 45-minute sail, and kind of 5.5 to 7.5 knots of breeze. So that was one of the things that obviously was an AC 36. We designed so carefully for a certain wind range, and when we got out of range, obviously we were pretty vulnerable. But those are decisions that you make at that moment to be aggressive to win the America's Cup, because that's kind of what it takes to win. And here the Mother Nature card is going to be quite challenging for all the teams. In this month of May, we've had just incredible sea breeze conditions, perfectly flat water. It's been beautiful. It's been like sailing in Pensacola. But I have a feeling as we get into the month of August and September, and we go through the summer and it gets hot and there's a lot of sea state, and you just know that change is coming with the air temperature and the water temperature being warmer. So I'm excited to see how the fleet goes and how everybody races. I'm excited for our team because I think, as you rightfully pointed out earlier, the addition to Tom as one of our helmsmen, and the addition of Goody as one of our helmsmen is a good step on for our team. And it's been exciting to watch the evolution of Michael Menninger and Riley Gibbs and Lucas and the younger generation sailors and how they're supporting the guys on the boat, and Andrew Campbell, who's just been a rocket flying the boat and has been patient and allowing the other guys to develop around him and supporting that development. So you can feel, certainly I can see all the reasons why we can be successful. And on the inside, you can also see reasons why we would not be successful. And so, we have to keep chipping away at that list that are perceived weaknesses and turn them into strengths.
So far, it seems that you have learned how to go very fast in light air. Do you think that this will be also the same for all the boats? Will they all be fast, or is it possible that you have an advantage there?
A lot of that comes down to foil size, maneuverability, and the boat's ability to touch down in a maneuver and keep going and not deaccelerate too much. And all the teams you can see have, they've all contemplated the problem in somewhat similar ways and in somewhat different ways. The Ineos boat is quite unique in its look, and yet when you see it out sailing and you see it flying perfectly off the water, you can see the logic behind the design. And so, what you do know for certain is all the design teams are incredibly smart, and how each team faces the problem and the solution that they put forward is really the difference maker. In being mindful in the hulls, it's a small percentage of the actual drag. When the boat's foiling along in the air, roughly 85% of the drag is in the foil, and the other 15% is in everything above the water. So, how the teams have solved those or looked at the challenges that we face is different, and yet, I think it'll eventually come down to the foils, the systems inside the boat, which is critical, and the sails.
But when you were trying this very light air sailing, you apparently had two different foils, one on starboard and a different one on port side. What did you learn from that?
No, they're all relatively similar. The foils, the subtle differences in the foils, all the foils are from the same family per the rule, and so that's I would say that's a misconception.
Okay. That is what the picture said, but that may be wrong, of course.
Yeah, the internet never fabricates.
This is true. You said you are most concerned with your own team and how you are progressing, but you cannot completely overlook the politics of the America's Cup. And we will see now for the first time that the Defender is supplying equipment to one of the challengers. How do you feel about
that? How do I feel about it? Well, I understand the logic, and it's great that there's another competitor inside the America's Cup. I mean, the French team is, they're to their credit, they're doing a great job on the Sail GP circuit, and they're perpetuating that in the America's Cup arena. And the principal, Stephen Candler and Bruno, I mean, these guys have been around the block a couple times, and so it's a smart decision for them because it allows them to accelerate a learning curve that they would never be able to do within the time frame that they have. And so it's a great decision for them. And for the Defender, it's a good decision because it helps offset their spend. And so it's really nothing we can do about it. So probably not much reason to moan about it because it's a business transaction. And from an American Magic perspective, it will be good to have the opportunity to race more against that boat. So when you meet them in the match, you have a better understanding of what the boat's capable of.
Assuming that both were eliminated quite early because they are less experienced, perhaps, and certainly less funded than the other teams, it would mean that the Defender would have an extra sparring partner.
Yeah, I mean, um, I'm not resided to the fact that they're, you know, I have equal respect for them as I do for Team New Zealand and for all the challengers. And so it's a mistake to contemplate anybody getting eliminated or suggest that they would be the as we were the first team out of the last one. I'm never going to go down that one because it was, it's just not something really to be thinking about. As far as being a tuning partner for the defender, the daily burn rate of an America's Cup program is quite expensive. And so if you were to hang around and invest in that relationship in that manner, it would be a disservice to the challengers, which is ultimately our goal is to defeat the defender of the America's Cup and try to get it out of their hands. And so as a challenger, you'd be disappointed if that was the path that another challenger took.
Do you agree that the five challengers all have a chance to win the America's Cup?
I do, yeah. I mean, I think the defender is very good though, and their boat is really nice. And so, but I think that they've been the defenders on a ship right now between New Zealand and Barcelona, and they gave back a lot of time in shipping their boat instead of flying their boat. And the one thing you can never get back in the America's Cup is the time. But they're very good and they're very polished, and the challenger that gets to the match is going to be pretty hardened and pretty bloodied. And so to have a chance at winning AC37, you're going to need to take some early races and get them on the back foot because it's a very experienced and very well sailed team.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps the British team has been somewhat disappointing until now.
I'm not going to talk about that, Mikkel. You got to ask them that question. I'm focused on American Magic, right. And we know from firsthand experience this is a cruel game, and we have to right the wrong from 2021, so to speak. And so that is truly what my focus is. And the moment you give Ben Ainsley a sniff of blood, he's a shark and he's going to rip you to pieces. So it's safer to plan that way than the other.
Well, for you, it must be great to be back. The challenge last time was not that successful, and it seemed like your leadership carried through and made your place on the new team quite obvious. So, so that's nice.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you. No, I think it's we're fortunate to have the support of the principals that we have, and having the relationship that I've had with Hap and Doug. They understand the competitive side, and we've won more than we've lost, and I think that's why we continue on. They recognize the opportunity that we had, and they recognize that in some capacity we were a startup. And so on the race course, obviously our results were pretty abysmal, to say the least. But I wouldn't characterize the entire operation under the term of failing, because the team did some incredible things, and we put ourselves under a lot of pressure with that 3.5-year cycle, and we built a couple boats, a mule, and did a lot of really good work. And it was unfortunate that it got overshadowed by our poor result on the race course. But that's not a reflection of the quality of the people. That's a reflection of how the boat was raced, and we should make sure we take that on the chin and not forget it as we go forward into this competition. And that's that'll always be one of those things that if there was a regret, it would certainly be what happened, because it does not sit well with how that reflected on our entire team, because that wasn't a reflection of the skill and the quality of our people. It was a reflection of how we raced, and a moment on the boat that we made a bunch of poor decisions, and that's on the sailors. That's not on anybody else.
Right. Terry, you know pretty well where your team stands today. What kind of improvement can you make before the racing really starts?
What kind of what? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
What kind of improvements can you do?
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, that is the trick. improvements for us are, when we go sailing on Monday, it'll be day 16 in the boat. And so really we have to continue to understand and refine the performance of the boat around the race course. Right now we're truly only scratching the surface of performance. I would say of the 16 days, half of them have been sea trialing the boat and working through systems. And so, our focus is going to be boat speed, aero setup, hydro setup, and boat handling. And really developing kind of all areas of our platform so that at any given moment, we know the boat's being optimally raced. And that it's easy to say. And in this environment, it's really hard to do because you do a lot of things by yourself. And so optimizing performance in isolation is not a great spot to do it. And so we have to keep pushing ourselves hard on a race course and really learning to understand how the boat goes around the race course.
What kind of options do you have in optimizing your sails?
Well, each team, we get 6 mainsails or 12 skins, and that again in jibs, 15 jibs. I'm not sure if I'm not completely accurate there. But we have to continue to refine the sail program, and we have to continue to refine the aero platform to make sure that, again, those settings that we nail those settings and we understand the cause and effect of each setting, each max rotation degree, each cant angle, and how those all interact. So you have the sail program to go through. Each team gets a couple rudders to go through, and then you can adjust flaps and the outboard finishes of the foils to what the scientists think are great for air or for hydrodynamics and the performance of the foil in the water. And so in some ways there's quite a bit to do, but the number one performance improvement is time in the boat for the sailors and how they get into mode and stay into mode and really learn how to race the boat consistently. So that's not just the trimmers and the helmsman and the flight controller, but that's also the cyclers that are creating the power inside the boat.
How difficult will it be to handle the seaways in Barcelona, because there are more seaway than what you're used to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. We haven't seen it yet. We've been out, we've had a couple days in somewhere between 0.75 and 1.1 of a meter. And the boat, the impact of it on the boat is pretty small. It's impressive how it's way harder in the chase boat than it is on the sailboat. And I think where we get, where it'll be telling is how when we get into lighter air and the fleet is really working in the maneuvering and the pre-starts, and you're back in close to shore and you have to deal with the feedback of waves off the beach or off the wall, and that's going to be very telling. I think for Patriot and for our team, those are that's closer into our where we've positioned our design. And so what we see now has been just champagne sailing here in Barcelona. It's truly been 10 to 18 and perfectly flat water and great sea breezes. So as we progress into the summer, it'll be interesting to see how those conditions hang in there and how the fleet adjusts to the lighter air.
We have seen on some pictures that the boats are actually heeling to windward. How important is that?
Yeah, I mean, each team probably has different heel targets and different bow up, bow down trim targets. And so in the snapshot, if the boat's heeling to weather, it could be as simple as the traveler's not up high enough or there's too much flap on for that exact moment. A lot of the fleet that we've been sailing against, what you see is a very neutral heel angle. And on Patriot, we are exploring different options of how to sail the boat, whether windward heel or flat or leeward heel. Interestingly, Team New Zealand last year, when they were here in the Sea State and even a little bit in Auckland, we saw them sailing around with a lot of leeward heel because that's a good way to increase your cant angle. And also allow for a little bit of clearance and reduce some of the drag in and around the coil. So, there's a lot of different techniques to sailing this boat well. And And so how you optimize is going to be pretty critical.
Mm. Well, Terry, this year is going to be a very interesting sailing year. You have the Olympics, you have the America's Cup, and you have the Vendée Globe. And somehow these three events kind of amalgamate. You get the best from the Olympics, also actually from ocean racing into the America's Cup. How do you look at that?
Yeah. Well, the Vendée sailors, I mean, that's a whole nother level. I mean, I think what we're doing is pretty impressive, but I think what they do is incredibly impressive. And to be able to manage the platforms at the speeds that they do and the complexities of the boat speaks volumes of not only the shore teams and the design teams, but the sailor that's taking it on. It's something that, you can not be anything but impressed by. And the same thing with an AC 75. The boats and the teams that get these boats out on the water day in and day out, and the reliability, it speaks volumes to the whole operation and the efficiencies of it. And as a sailor, how can you not love the one design aspect of the Olympics? Because it's sailor and athlete in their one design boat, maybe within the design constraints of a 470 and some of the rules that are applied there, but there's development that goes on there as well. And, you see it from the dinghy level all the way up to the offshore level, as you rightfully point out in this year. And the discipline and the principles and the ideas are the same. And yet the complexity of each problem, be it a laser at the Olympics or a Vendée boat, I mean, it's opposite ends, and yet the sailor on board faces the same challenge. And so, I don't know, I think it's an exciting time for our sport, especially with the technology that we have going forward. I'm fortunate and always thankful to be involved in this, because you get to see such a different side of it. And yet last week we were with Hap on the Bellamente at the Maxi European Championship. And there it was an awesome regatta, and there was a wide variety of boats across everything from the Wally Centos down to Swan 65s, all racing. And there we were doing under a rating rule, and the rule was doing a pretty good job at rating the boats, and there are different winners on every single day. And so for me, I think it's an exciting time in our sport, because the momentum that's being pushed forward by the Olympics or the Vendée or the America's Cup definitely are working its way down through the other classes and other fleets. I mean, when that 52s get back to Europe after going to Newport for a couple of regattas, they'll finish off the season with 13 boats on the starting line. And it's just awesome to see, because that's incredible racing as well. So I don't know, I think it's all really exciting.
Yeah, I think it's exciting that the technology is being transferred between three quite different arenas. And and it does have impact.
And the 75s, in the America's Cup probably gets bagged a little bit, because the boat is so out of anything that we've seen. And, yet I don't think I could probably get into a Formula One car and outside of a steering wheel and turn anything left and right. I probably couldn't turn the thing on and drive it, because it's so complex. And that's what makes those athletes so unique in their discipline. And it's the same thing here. I mean, it's so cool to listen to our sailors and to listen to when they're ripping along at high 40s, be it in the AC 40 or in the AC 75, and hearing how flatline they are with their tone and their demeanor on the boat, and nothing phases them. But that's experience, and you see it certainly in Tommy and his Sail GP experience. He is leading the way in that world because he's just comfortable in the boat, and it's exciting to see when it comes to American Magic. Right.
Where do you see the AC 37 class going? Is that going to be raced between the America's Cup circuits or cycles, or what do you think?
Sorry, say that again. I didn't understand.
The AC
37.
37. What's going to happen to that class? Is that something that's going to be raced between the America's Cup cycles?
Oh, you mean the little 40, the AC 40?
Sorry,
the little 40-footer. Yeah, well, I think certainly our team would love for the class to evolve and to develop. it's a great little training platform for the America's Cup and for the AC75. And I know they're working on a schedule for 2025 that would include private and the America's Cup teams. I mean, it's a unique little boat, and it's not a, it's 40 feet, but, operating that boat is similar to operating a, somewhere around a TP52. It takes a shore team, it takes professionals in the Megatronics to understand how to, deal with the boat and the systems inside the boat. But it's a great little boat. And I mean, it's been so cool to see, in the past year, Ernesto was out sailing with a lingy. We've had Doug out on our boat sailing, and the little times that I've sailed the boat. I mean, it's just a cool little platform that you can go ripping around on. And so the racing itself there, unlike the catamaran, the racing itself there is going to require a little bit more speed. The boat, the strength of the catamaran is that you can sail it in pretty much anything. It doesn't have to foil to really show its thing, where the AC40 needs it needs 8.5 knots of breeze to properly race. So, they might, as they explore venues, that'll be a constraint that they'll have to contend with. But it's very cool, and it's impressive the speed that the thing goes.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it ensures the interest in the America's Cup as well, because
yes, I agree.
It's all the same family.
I agree. Yes, I agree with you.
Terry, nice to speak to you as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's great to see you.
I hope we will speak again before the America's Cup, and good luck in your preparations.
All right. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.